Hey you, come, gather around the campfire, and welcome to the party. This is Party Chat, a JRPG podcast where we talk about everything that we love in the world of JRPGs and other Eastern titles. I am one of your hosts, Cameron Hawkins, and with me, as always, is my party partner, Kevin Kenson. Kevin, how you doing this week?
I'm doing good. A little bit of catch up going on right now. I don't know if you've heard, but there's like 5 different things going on all at the same time that are announcing things. We had a direct, we had Gamescom, even past opening night live. A whole bunch of devs have just started like dropping information this morning. Sony's jacking up the prices of PS5s. It is a busy couple of days news wise.
Oh yeah, the PS5 price increase. I forgot to put that on the docket for the news. So that's interesting. I will probably add that at some point during this podcast slyly. But yeah, it's been a pretty busy week. It's been because we even got some other like embargo opportunities that we both got that have gone up this week as well. Very, very busy week. But a lot of really exciting stuff. I don't have a bit or a story for you this week, but I do want to like kind of send this message to our listeners right now that we're not really going to go super deep into what was announced at the Gamescom opening night live, because there wasn't really a whole lot that was there that we would cover in general. But there were a couple of things, right? Like Black Myth announced their new game like in the series. I believe it's pronounced Shongqi. I'm sorry if I butchered that to my Chinese friends, but that's my best attempt at that. And how do you feel about the announcement of one of that being just like GameSign's being like, hey, the new one's already coming, we're already working on it, no real DLC, which I actually want more people to do, is like stop doing DLCs that take years to make instead of just working on the next game. But also just like it being just like the next Black Myth, and then it's like the legend of like a new, mythological type character.
Yeah, honestly, I think as far as, not double dipping into Wukong, I actually like that because I think it also it makes more sense for the title, right? Like, it wasn't Wukong Black Myth, it was Black Myth Wukong. And so, like, that actually kind of planted the seeds right there. Like, oh, this is a franchise that's going to be focusing on different major mythological characters and, going between all of them. I did not get around to playing Wukong. I actually just got a code for it thanks to Xbox, because it got released on Xbox just recently. So I'm going to be able to play it for the first time soon.
Okay. I thought you played it.
No, I haven't. I've checked it out a little bit, and I've talked to some people I know and trust the opinions of on it, and it sounds interesting. I don't know if it's going to be something that blows me away, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm going to end up like loving it. It's definitely a game that I think had like a lot more hype going into release than it did coming out. Not that people didn't love it, but I think it like a lot of people were like, "Oh, this is going to be like this is like the game," and it was like, "Yeah, no, it's good." But yeah,
keep going.
Yeah, but yeah, I think this could be one of those things where maybe the next game is announced a little too soon. We'll find out because we just don't know what the actual dev time on this is going to be. I imagine, having completed Wukong, that like the turnaround time on this one, if they're not trying to completely reinvent things, can be a little faster, right? Like, they already have some assets and some things to work with, as well as just a foundation and their familiarity with the engine. So I'm very curious, because this was like a CG trailer. Is this something where, is this 2 years away? Is this 3 years away? Is this 5 years away? Like, we just don't know. They just kind of gave us the littlest glimpse at it coming out.
Yeah, I think the whole conversation around game science is tough, considering to say the least. Considering the reports that went out of that studio and how its treatment of women and that's really upsetting to see. And I think that, you know, I'm not sure because I didn't play the game because it's just not my interest. But like, I know a lot of people that played that game and really like that reviewed the game and really liked it. I know some people that play that game and think it's like in specifically in the media space, right?
Yeah.
And then there are people that played it and thought that it is just like the most mid, you know, like a lot of people like are comparing it to like a PS2 game
Sure.
and like the way that it's designed. Which I never really liked that like those kind of comparisons personally. Even if I may like ultimately agree if I were to play it that I'm not crazy about it. But like my you know, two of my roommates, like they love playing games, but they're not like as into everything as I am, and they both loved that game, like
Right.
loved it. And so it's just like, I think that this is just a situation where dealer's choice, right? Like some people like love it, some people think it's solid, some people think it's not good, and so like I, I do think, and you know, I have talked about it on the podcast before, and I'm not trying to open up a whole nother box of debate on it, but similar to SGF, this presentation reminded me how fucking exhausted I am of Souls likes. I looked at, you know, I think that there's still this weird argument, not weird, but like this argument that on whether or not Black Myth Wukong is like a Souls-like, or if it's just like an action game that relies heavily on Souls-like elements. And regardless of whether or not what it is,
Sure.
every action game that like didn't involve a gun during that presentation was a Souls-like. And to me, that is a problem. And I don't like it. Like, you know, I think that this, you know, we think about Souls-likes, and I want to be clear that I think Souls-likes are a subgenre of the action genre, right?
Yeah.
So when people say like, oh, well, if it was just all JRPGs, you'd be okay with this, like, because JRPGs are like a top level genre. Like it branches to different things,
Right.
right? Souls-like is a branch of the action genre. So when you see all of these new games being announced and they're all under the same branch of a major genre, that gets taxing.
Yeah.
And I know that you are a big Souls-like fan, and I talk to other Souls-like fans that, you know, don't feel this way. They don't feel like that there's an oversaturation. They don't feel these things, but
I mean, I will say, like, I consider myself a Souls-like fan, but I also... Souls-like is one of those genres where, while I do think... Well, one, I do think the term is sometimes a little overused, and I don't think there's a great, fully agreed-on definition of what makes a game a Souls-like. Because I've seen people label something as a Souls-like, and I'm like, that's not... Okay, like, sure, R2 is attack, and that's why that feels like way too cool. But I will say that while I like Souls-likes, I definitely think that a lot of the ones that hit the market don't take the right lessons from what I like about, like, from soft Souls-likes. Like, there are some games that do. Like, I think Lies of P, for instance, was really great. Like, that's
Lies
probably...
of P, 100%.
That's probably my favorite, like, non-from soft Souls-like that I've played.
Agreed.
And then there's a lot of others where it's like, yes, this is a Souls-like, and I see, like, the building blocks of, like, what it took from, you know, Demon Souls, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and I'm just like, yeah, that's cool that you made this. And, like, I don't want to be too down on anyone, like, making a game that they think is cool. It's just that, like, there's so much of it that's out there. I will say, from the opening I live, like, I am curious how many of those games are ultimately going to be, like, true Souls-likes, because there's also a lot that were just cinematics. Like, there's some that we know for sure, because it's like, oh, Lords of Fallen 2. that is a sequel to a Souls-like game. That is going to be a Souls-like game. But there are a lot where it's like, oh, this is very Souls-like coded, where it's like, oh yes, we're getting very dark fantasy, maybe vaguely religious tones, but all we really got was like a hype trailer, and I don't know what that means.
I want to clarify that, like, I'm not just saying that, like, oh, it looks like it's a Souls-like, it is like, hey, press releases came out after this showcase. They
Right.
confirmed this is a Souls-like. And so to me, that is like, yeah. Because there were games I was super interested in that I wasn't entirely sure, right? Like the Divine Comedy game
Yep.
that we saw from the Entoria devs, which Entoria is a Souls-like. And I was like, my immediate thought was like, please don't be a Souls-like. Please don't be a Souls-like. And, you know, there were reports from like GameSpot that said like, hey, this is a Souls-like. But then I've seen other descriptions saying it's hack and slash.
Right.
So it's like, well, yeah, Souls-likes can be hack and slash. So I don't really know what that means, but
Yeah. What is this actually? Again, not great.
Yeah.
There's like not a great unified definition is where it ultimately comes from. And it's very easy, I think, sometimes for some writers to just be like, oh yeah, like that's a Souls-like. It's like, is it? Like I see
Yeah.
where the correlation is, but I just don't always agree.
No, for sure. Like I think I personally have a pretty good understanding where I'm like, oh, this is a Souls-like, this is not a Souls-like. Because there's definitely like Souls-likes, right? And then there's games with Souls-like elements.
Yeah.
Like, hell, Expedition 33 has Souls-like elements.
Sure.
You know, and so like, but it's not a Souls-like. You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's one of those things. Like I get Souls-likes are the big thing now. You know, Jeff Keighley is buddy with Mr. Souls-like himself. Like, but guys, like we gotta do something more. Like that Ninja Gaiden 4 trailer fucking rocked, right? Like that shit ruled, and it just we didn't get enough of like diversity in the action genre, because even in the shooter sense, like a lot of the shooters like kind of were the same vibe, and I was just like,
Well,
oh,
it's
okay,
like-
here's another.
Yeah, it's like if you're coming from enjoying like, you know, your favorite FPS is Doom, but then every other game you see come out is another boots on the ground military modern shooter. It's like, cool. It's like, no, there's nothing wrong with that genre existing. It's just like,
No.
there's a degree of balance where it's like, okay, that's cool. We have a lot of these. Can we get some of the other thing too now, please?
Yeah, it very much feels like, especially as time has gone on, that these shows, whether it be Game Awards or Gamescom or the Game Awards, a lot of these announcements are basically like whatever Jeff Keighley wants and whoever has the most money.
Yeah.
And
which is-
like, and that's upsetting. Like,
Yeah.
I don't mind the kind of transitional stuff where we get the gotcha games. Like, sure, do your thing, gotcha games. But
I
because
was gonna
that's
say
just like,
that bothered me more, but
oh, see, that doesn't really bother me
there were
because
just
like,
so many. We had like 7 gotchas at this presentation.
well, because like that was okay. So here's the thing that's interesting about this too, because like when I was talking with my friend who loves Souls-likes, who's played like probably like all the notable ones that have come out, they said like, oh, it's not an oversaturation because the games are like really good and people or not like
Like the
not that
market's
they're good, but like but
market's taking
people
it.
people are buying them, people are playing them, there's
Yeah.
a want for them, and it's just like I don't think we have the same definition of what oversaturation is, but even if I want to follow that mindset, why do we feel differently about gotcha games then? Because most gotcha games are good. They're just a specific design that a lot of people like us don't really vibe with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
and there is also the argument of how predatory some can be and like the dangers of that, but that's also a whole other.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true, but I also think that there is a level of like personal responsibility on your end with
Sure.
that. But like I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. So I didn't mean that to go that long, but I did want to kind of get that stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
Before we got into like the JRPG news, because there is a lot of JRPG news. It just didn't happen at Gamescom.
Yeah,
And so,
which
except for one. Except for one.
I will say, I am a little surprised how relatively diverse this Gamescom was, because I feel like normally Gamescom is very Eurocentric, which makes sense. It's based in Germany. Like, that's kind of almost the point of it. And I almost wonder if, kind of in response to E3 fully dying, if there is a bit more of a push now to try and make it a bit more internationally aimed show, because while there wasn't a lot in terms of JRPGs specifically, which is what we get excited about, there was a lot of Japanese dev representation. I mean, Capcom had a lot of stuff. Square Enix showed up. Konami was there with Silent Hill F. There was quite a bit from Japanese developers, more than I think we ever really normally see at Gamescom specifically.
Yeah, I agree with you, but part of me like doesn't think that's a good thing. I think that this does give the opportunity for the European devs to really have a chance to shine every year.
Yeah.
And while it is cool that a lot of the bigger players that don't normally have a major presence is at Gamescom, it's kind of, it's a mixed bag. It's kind of like, oh, that's cool, but also we're losing this, like
Sure.
the give and take of it.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is that like Gamescom is not a Jeff Keighley thing, but Opening Night Live is.
Yes.
And so I think like there's a lot of stuff we're now learning coming out of Gamescom that wasn't at Opening Night Live that I think does, aid that sector a little more. I think it's more that there's kind of a consistent style and theme, and as you kind of mentioned earlier, it's like some of the Jeff Keighley shows, like there's just a certain kind of tone now that we're seeing across Game Awards, SGF, and Opening Night Live, where it's like I kind of know what the layout's going to be now. Like we're going to have the gacha games that show up and are almost more like advertisements than reveals. We're going to have like the actual kind of cool indie stuff that Jeff clearly is excited about and wants to be able to share and give a hand to, which is great when that happens. I mean, we all know that Muppet boxing game was because of how much he loves the Muppets, right?
Yeah.
And then there's going to be stuff where it's like, oh, they also needed this to make money, and so here are the devs or companies that had cash to throw,
Yes. No, I agree. I agree with you completely. It's a tough thing, and I'm not Jeff Keighley. I don't know what those conversations look like. I don't know
Sure.
like how many people, like how many studios are looking to be a part of that in a real way, and the options that Jeff Keighley has to choose from. So it's a and we're never gonna know in a real way. So it's just you kind of have to take what we see and try and make some sense into it.
Yeah.
But before we get into the rest of the news for the week, we're gonna go over some housekeeping because we got a bit more than normal. We're on a panel. We're throwing a panel at PAX West. It's going to be in Seattle. If you are in the Seattle area and you're going to PAX West, you should come by our panel. It's going to be on September 1st, Monday, September 1st at 2:30 p.m. We are collaborating with the JRPG Pursuit podcast. That includes Brandon, Just the Gems, Emily, Orbology, and Abdallah from Dalla Games. They've all been on the pod before, so if you are new to the pod, you should go back and listen to those episodes to kind of get a better sense of them, because they're great. And the title of the panel is Nostalgia Reborn, the Impact of Remastered JRPGs in Modern Gaming. So we're definitely going to be talking a lot about remasters in the JRPG space, how they have affected the JRPG space. We'll probably dabble into the remakes of things as well. And it's going to be in the Firebird Theater, which is the 5th floor of the Summit Building. Again, September 1st at 2:30 p.m. I got to play 4 hours of Toa and the Guardians of the Sacred Tree, and we have a preview up on our YouTube and podcast services for you to check out. In short, I really liked it. I'm a lot more excited about that game than I initially was, and there's a demo out now too. So if the game sounds interesting to you, you can download it on whatever platform you want and check it out for yourself. Did you get to check that out yet?
I haven't yet. That's
Okay.
that and the new Daemon X Machina demo are like on my to-do list later
Yes.
this week. Hopefully
Yes.
tomorrow.
That's another thing that I forgot to mention on the docket, that there is a demo for Daemon X Machina. So you should definitely check that out, because I know I am. Uh, Kevin got to go hands-on with Onimusha Way of the Sword, Resident Evil Requiem, and Pragmata. And we have our preview up about all those games in one single episode on YouTube and podcast services. If you've been enjoying the show, please go to your podcast service of choice, give us a 5-star review, as well as going to youtube.com/at party chat JRPG pod and hit the subscribe button over there. We also have a Patreon. If you want to subscribe and give us a couple of bucks, you get a few rewards like getting the podcast a day early, the access to our exclusive Discord, a monthly Q&A, our Campfire Catalog podcast, which is our book club, which we're currently working on The Legend of Dragoon and Lunar Remastered Collection. Lastly, go to youtube.com/Kevin Kenson and hit the subscribe button over there, as we're trying to get him to 1 million followers before the end of 2025. And lastly, shout out to our patrons. You know, we normally don't do that on the pod, and I don't know why, but we've had like a small but very committed group of patrons since the beginning of this year when we started this venture, and it's just been a really good time. Some of these patrons are people that I like looked up to getting into the industry, and I'm now like blessed enough to like call them friends. And you know, we're kind of talking about it in the like, you know, just in private discussion, that like it's interesting, like the kind of the background of how all these people like subscribe to our Patreon. Like, we have a few people that subscribe because they knew me. They have like a few that knew you already. Some that actually came over because of JRPG Pursuit podcast, and some people that just came across the podcast and just decided to do it and have stuck around since. So thank you to all of y'all. Really appreciate y'all. Kevin, I did not like tell you I was going to do this, so if there's anything that you wanted to say, please, you know.
I mean, ditto? No,
Ditto, okay.
Caught me off guard a little bit there, but like, yeah, like, you know, appreciate all of you. You know, Cam and I have been talking a little bit about ways we want to kind of grow this podcast in the future, and I think there's going to be some, not in like, you know, the next couple episodes or anything, but some adjustments we might be making as time moves forward, and just really appreciate you guys all hopping in as soon as you did, and sticking around with us. You know, just, it does mean a lot.
Yeah, we, you know, we're not gonna explain details, but like, because of y'all, we got some cool stuff in the works that we think that y'all are gonna really like once the time comes. Now we're gonna get into the news. There's no real top story this week. I'm just kind of like reading them down because they're all like decently significant. But first and foremost, that foremost kind of cancels out what I just said. Anyway,
You're good.
Monster Hunter Wilds and Final Fantasy XIV are getting mutual collaborations. This was the one thing that was announced at Opening Night Live that definitely got to talk about. So Monster Hunter Wilds is getting Omega as a monster to fight, which is really cool. There's going to be Chocobo skin. I don't know if it's going to be like a skin or how they're going to do it, but there's going to be like Chocobo themed secrets that you can ride around. And it's coming in September with the Title 3 update.
I do want to say that when they did that reveal and they showed that, like, oh, the Chocobo's acting as a secret, I was like, that is so obvious. Like, they're the same build. Like, it's almost like add a little bit more reptilian features and you have yourself a secret. So, like, I don't know why that didn't occur to me sooner. And just seeing it in action, I was like, oh yeah, you could do that.
Yeah, I thought of it more as like, oh yeah, you just slim down a secret a little bit, and it's the Chocobo. Final Fantasy 14 is getting seemingly from the screenshots we saw Palico's secrets as a mount, and the Arcvault, which is the signature monster for Wilds, as a boss. I don't know in what capacity, if it's going to be like a raid boss or how what have you, but it's going to be fightable. And that's going to come in October for Final Fantasy 14 players. Kirby Air Riders is coming out on November 20th. There was a direct this week hosted by Masahiro Sakurai. And it was a lengthy presentation, but it did show us a lot about the game. I think the main bits that we want to talk about here is just like, is the general kart racing aspect of the game. There's some interesting things, which I actually think was a part of the original. It's been a minute since I played the original, but I really did enjoy my time where you don't you auto go forward, and you only have to really worry about your turns and when you're flying in the air, which I think is interesting. There's the boost charge system, which I do remember being in the original, and then you have your what do they call the actual carts in this one?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Oh man, I forgot. Yeah, I forgot what they're called. But basically, like, the carts, they all have like special properties. Like some allow it so that you like fly faster in the air. Like some's like, oh, it's you don't get any boost charge, but you get a different benefit. Like,
yeah.
There's a solid variety of customization, which honestly, like, and there's still a bit more to talk about, but I feel like this is the closest I'm gonna get to a new Sonic Riders. I really do. Like, it doesn't like, it's not a one for one, but kind of the way that they're just like customizing with like, oh, like, depending on what rider you have, that depends on what their special is, right? So if you're like normal Kirby, you go into the sword Kirby and you're just like swinging your sword trying to hit people. And then like if you're King DDD, because you're a heavier person, like he doesn't have a melee special. He uses his hammer to boost himself forward faster, and it's just like, these are the kind of things that I like in my kart racers. Like, I want my racers to have these unique functions, so that like there is a better sense of identity and like a better sense of experimenting and finding like the mixture that works for you. And Sonic Riders doesn't 100% do that, but it did with like, oh, you have a speed character, so speed characters can grind, power characters can punch through like certain things, and the fly characters can fly. Like, there those type of aspects that like I really, really enjoyed in this presentation that I just kind of forgot existed in Kirby Air Ride. I'm like, oh no, like this is like really, really cool, and I'm really glad I didn't buy Mario Kart World, because this is a lot more interesting to me as a kart racer. Yeah. So
I will say, just, now that you mentioned Mario Kart World, my favorite part of that presentation is Sakurai being like, now you might be wondering, is this too similar to Mario Kart? Well, that's what I also asked. And look, it is. It's not the exact same, but this is definitely just a similar genre, and we're coming out back to back. That's just how it is. Just the kind of frankness of it. I love when he does presentations, because there's something magical about, like, you knew once that it like was led by him that this direct was going to be minimum 35-40 minutes, and we hit a nice like 45. Like any other dev that does a dedicated direct, it's like, oh, 20 minutes, get to the nougat of information. We're just gonna like drop all this stuff back to back and we're good. Sakurai's like, we are going to get into the history of racing games and how this has shaped what we're making with this title, and like just really break down the nitty gritty in a way that usually you don't get in presentations.
Yes, I really love, like, oh, we did this because I thought that this is good design. Like, I think that when you look at his YouTube channel, where he literally just gave you a free game design course over there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like if you're trying to get into game design, just watch those videos. Those get really deep in the weeds sometimes, where like it's like just such a specific topic, and I'm like, I'm checking out on this one, dog. I'm checking out on this one. But like, I like how when they explain why they did, you know, why they added this, why they added that, he explains why. He explained from a design standpoint, this is why we did this. And I really appreciate that because he makes it like, because he's very straightforward, but he's also very nuanced in like explaining everything, and I
Yeah.
really appreciate it. He's a really good teacher, like in that sense. But and you know, some of the other things that they mentioned is that there's going to be 16 playable characters, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that sounds right. Yeah.
So you know, we got DDD, we got Meta Knight, some different colored Kirby's, things like that. So you actually get to choose, unlike in Air Riders, where it's just basically like, hey, pick your Kirby, and this is what you get. You know, they showed that City Trial is back, which is awesome. Like that was like honestly the thing I did the most in the original. And then you know, there's lesson modes to let you like learn how to play things and all that stuff. I think what's funny about it, it is that how like Smash coded a lot of the menus and the UI is in this game. And like I get it's Sakurai thing, but I always thought of it as a Smash thing. It's like, oh,
Yes.
you're just bringing this over. I don't know if like Kid Icarus Uprising was like that, but at least like just for me, going from Ultimate to this, I'm like, oh wow, y'all aren't trying to hide that this, you know, the Smash influence here. That was the gist of what was announced at the Direct. If you want to watch the full Direct, you can. Again, it's like 45 minutes. But Kirby Air Riders is releasing for $70. How do you feel about that $70 price tag?
I mean, that's just their standard now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like so far, thankfully, World has been the only example of them jumping up to 80. I don't see Nintendo intentionally pricing down most of their first IP, like their big IP stuff. Like obviously, Dragon Strive could go for cheaper because like it's definitely a smaller targeted game with like its own kind of lower budget style. But I don't see many of their big first party IPs having like price reduced games at launch unless it's something that's very intentionally like, this is just a small thing. Like this is just an extra, it's like a little thing you can play, you know, that's 40 or 50. But all the main stuff, that's 70 here on out or possibly 80.
It's interesting because like part of me, and this is probably just the bias of like being integrated in the gaming space in a real way. Part of me is like, oh, if Nintendo priced that for 80, people would like. I think that the same people would be picking up that game like day one. I don't think that $10 difference because it is Sakurai.
Yeah,
I totally.
I honestly,
but that is still in the grand scheme of things such a small
yeah,
demographic of people.
I honestly think price adjustments by $10 don't impact direct sales as much as people want them to. I think it's a thing to be upset about, and I think it's a thing that like is frustrating, especially because games for so long were pretty resilient against inflation, and in the last like 5 years, we've seen them jump up considerably faster than it's been in a long time. But I think at the end of the day, if someone wants a game, they're gonna buy it. You know, it might stop them from buying like an additional title. They were like, oh, maybe I'll check this one out. But it's like, if you're into Kirby, if you're into Donkey Kong, if you're into Mario Kart World, like, it's getting picked up. You're going to be mad about it, but it's going to get picked up.
You know what's really funny too is that if there was just a new Star Fox game, I think like all of the OG, the big OG6 Nintendo of that era, you know what I'm talking about? Like Mario, Zelda, DK, Kirby, Zelda. Like if there was just a Star Fox game, you would have one of all of them in the first year at launch, and I think that would be really impressive. I thought that'd be really impressive.
That would be cool. That would be cool. I mean, we can dream. We're getting through this year pretty quick at this rate, but
yeah, because you know also because there's Metroid too. Metroid was was a part of that as well.
Yeah.
So like all of those, like that's really impressive. Even though the Zeldas are Age of Calamity, right, or Age of Imprisonment, like
Yep.
that's a Zelda game. Yeah, yeah. So very impressive, regardless. Now there's two things I wanted to mention. One, uh, Bandai Namco is the developer for this game.
Yes.
Again, like with Smash. Um, I think that's pretty interesting. I don't. I feel like for someone that for a studio that like helps with development of like their big games, I kind of like expect them to have like a more significant relationship with Nintendo when it comes to their own games. Does that make sense? Like kind of like how with Square, right, we get these exclusives. I don't know how significant that's going to play moving forward because like Square Enix is like, oh, like there's been this shift of like we're trying not to do like these console exclusive titles anymore, especially on PS5.
Yeah.
And we already know that like Elliot is going to be multi-platform, which like would be the next game that totally would make sense to be a Switch exclusive.
Right.
Yeah, I just think that's I don't know. It's something that's kind of came to my mind.
Yeah. No, well, it's rough, right? Because it's great for I'm sure it's worth it for Ben and Namco to be contributing these resources, and like I'm sure they get their cut. And it's not as if the games they're working with aren't like, you know, they're huge titles underneath Nintendo that are going to do their numbers. You know, Smash Brothers is a big one that people look forward to. I think it's hard to run that in the opposite direction, just because, you know, as you said, like a lot of devs aren't really looking to do exclusives as much anymore. And I also think there's a bit more wariness about doing like platform exclusive content. Like it's not a thing that doesn't happen, but I think it's getting rarer and rarer. Like when Ubisoft had the Star Fox stuff that was specific to the Switch version of, I can't remember the name right now, but that one space game with the Toys to Life stuff going on. That was multiplat, but if you wanted the Star Fox stuff specifically, had to play it on Switch.
Yes.
And I think that's oftentimes just a route that devs don't really want to go anymore. So, you know, who knows? Maybe there's some wild thing in the future where Tekken 8 gets a Switch 2 port and Link's in it or something. But I think in as far as like that relationship goes, I think the current structure is kind of just where it's going to keep hanging out. Honestly, the biggest thing about them working together more often that keeps, like, I know a few people have been asking this, and it's especially relevant to our audience, Xenosaga. Like, Bandai Namco has the rights to that game. Monolith is underneath Nintendo. What can we do with like getting these out on modern platforms again? Like, what's
That would be very very cool. I just yeah, I think that just like getting Monolith involved with that when they're involved with so much other stuff. That's kind of a Nintendo's gonna prioritize their stuff before
Sure.
they prioritize. Even if they said like these will be Nintendo Switch exclusives, they're gonna be like, I don't know, you know. So, and then the other thing I forgot about because we went too long on this topic, and I was just like, okay. Next story, Tales of Xillia Remastered has been announced. There was an announcement that this was going to be announced like right, I think it was like shortly after we recorded last week's episode. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
like this video went up and the thumbnail basically leaked that it was Xillia.
Yeah, the video didn't go up. What happened was it was a video scheduled to go live, and they had it to where it was like publicly available to be like, oh, like this presentation is coming up on this date. Be ready for it. But they didn't give it a little bit of YouTube backend stuff. You can upload the thumbnail that you want, which is what most people tend to do, but you can also just do auto pick, where you don't upload a thumbnail and it just auto defaults to a random frame. Where someone didn't upload a thumbnail for that video and it just auto defaulted to a random frame, which happened to be from Tales of Xillia. So everyone saw that and immediately went, I wonder if they're going to announce Tales of Xillia Remastered. Like, I wonder if that's what's happening. And it is.
Yeah, I think that the big thing at that point was, hey, are they gonna release or announce both of them, right? Because
Sure.
there's two games, and unfortunately it's just the one for now. I hope that they do the next one next. It is coming to all platforms. As of right now, no news on an Xbox physical, even for Europe, because with Tales of Grace's F, there was no physical for Xbox in the US ESRB, but there was for PEGI, which is Europe's uh, you know rating board. That's how I got my physical for Xbox for Grace's F. So I really hope it gets one. But as of right now, we know nothing. Um, and the collector in me is like, oh, but if I have to get the PS5 version, I'm gonna have to get the PS5 version for all of the games so that they all look nice on my shelf. But one thing that's worth noting, because they also released the like specs of the game, is that sadly the Switch is 30 FPS, which is I don't know. Like I wish at the very least they just had it at an unlocked frame rate, because well, hold on. Let me finish.
Okay.
Because like when Tales of Vesperia came out, that was set for 60, but it struggled.
Yeah.
But now on Switch 2, it runs fine.
Yeah.
It runs perfect.
Sure.
And then they botched the Symphonia release on Switch, and they've kind of like kept that trend of like just being like, oh, it's 30 FPS. And I just like, and I'm not a frame rate guy. I'm really not. Like, as long as it's smooth, I don't really care. Like, and I know that's like a very controversial take, but that's just how my eyes see the game. It's like, oh, is running smooth? Cool. Like, I don't care much about that stuff. But just like knowing that it's capable, at least on Switch 2.
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
And
because
then-
that's the thing, right? Like, because it makes sense why Switch is capped. Because I personally, for me, stability is what matters most. Like,
Yes,
I would much
yes.
rather have stable 30 than have like, oh, it can hit 60, but it's going to be rubber banding, down to 42 or down to 30
or-
and back and
or
forth in
at
different
least-
situations.
Sure. Let me rephrase. At least give us like a Switch 2 update.
Yeah.
Where something like that. Like
And that makes sense. Like that, I 100% want that.
and I know that there were more issues to Symphonia than just the frame rate specifically, but like do at least that, dog. Like go back to that, because that is like arguably your golden egg of the series, and like the fact that like y'all dropped the ball that hard, like y'all should go back and fix that. And I know that there have been updates since, but like still not where it needs to be.
Yeah.
So anyway, but your thoughts on it being Zillia next?
I'm a little surprised.
Okay.
Like, I think, like, it does make sense as, like, another one to remaster. And look, I think we're going to hit the point where basically every major 3D Tales release is going to get remastered and come out. Like, it just makes sense at this point. They're working their way through. They've said as much themselves. I would have assumed Abyss would have been next, just like kind of the general order they're going, but it seems like they do want to finish remastering kind of the 360 PS3 era, which is where, Vesperia, Graces, now Zillia, are all getting updated. So, there's some older titles in the franchise I'd like them to start reaching back to, PS2 era and earlier. I really want to see them do something with like the older ones, like when we get back to, Tales of Destiny, Tales of Fantasia, even like bringing over the PS2 versions of Tales of Destiny and Tales of Destiny 2, which we never got in the US. There's a lot of, like, I think more interesting aspects to tap into, but Zillia 100% makes sense as far as something that I think is a, not that it takes like no effort, but it is a lower investment to like get that game up to speed than certain other titles, right? Like get the higher resolution support, make sure the frame rate's good. They add in some, bonus DLC packs or whatever, because that's what Bandai Namco's going to do. Yeah, like I think it makes sense. I'm sure with this one out, 2 is just around the corner. Surprising how fast they're also knocking these out. This was something you brought up right before we started recording. Graces was this year, and Zillia is going to be this year. Like, that is less than a year apart.
Yep. And I mean, as long as that they come at an adequate quality, I don't particularly care, how quickly, or how quickly they come out. And honestly, like the Tales remasters, I'm more interested in than most things that Bandai Namco is releasing that's new. So I'm not complaining, but I also like just need to play through them because just doing all these other series playthroughs right now. Tales is definitely one I want to get to. So yeah. Um, Next story. Trails in the Sky first chapter is rumored. It has not been confirmed yet as of recording that there's going to be a demo dropping sometime on August 21st. So the day that this comes out publicly, there's rumored to be a demo out.
If this is true, yeah.
The demo is supposed to have the first 8 hours of the game approximately, and you will be able to transfer your save over to the full game once it comes out on September 19th.
Yeah, and that's first 8 hours being like fairly completionist. Like you're doing side quests, you're talking to people, like you're really engaging all the content you can before whatever like main story cutoff point.
Yes, but also side quests should be considered mandatory.
Sure. Yeah, I know. I get that that's like a thing with Trails. I'm just saying like that is how it's structured. It's like you're not getting 8 hours out of just like beelining the plot. It's like, oh no, you're fully engaging with, every aspect of this game.
Yes, and one thing I will mention for those that do decide to download this demo, please download this demo, that are new to Trails. This is a game where you need to do the side quests once you are able to pick up the side quests, do not try to advance the main story because, at least in the original, once you get to a certain point in advancing the main story, and normally they tell you this before you continue on, those quests expire. Like, you can no longer do them.
Yeah.
And so I would highly recommend doing the side quests first and then getting into the main story after. I'm super excited, and I'm going to play the shit out of that. Because I do want to say, we'll get to it a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get to it a little bit later. PlayStation 5 is unfortunately getting a price increase starting the day this podcast drops publicly. The PS5 is going up to $549.99. The PS5 Digital Edition $499, and the PS5 Pro $749.
Yep.
I really wanted to try and get a PS5 Pro before this was going to happen. That did not happen. So I don't know. I don't know, dog. I don't know when I'm going to get a PS5 Pro because like $750 is asking a lot for at this point not many games that actually utilize it in a real way.
Especially if you already like own a PS5, right? Like that's the biggest headache.
Yes.
Like it's one thing if you just haven't invested in PlayStation at all and it's like, all right, I'm going to pick up a system. I'm going to get like the biggest, coolest one. When you're like, I already have this thing. So I'm paying $750 just for the performance bump. Like you're not getting any access to games that aren't coming out elsewhere or coming out as like timed exclusives. You're not getting like, into just like social areas that are new. It's just straight up, I am buying this purely for the performance boost. And that's a lot harder of a price to swallow for that. Even if you consider how much you can make selling your PS5 to like cover the difference, it's pretty painful. Like we kind of like, look, we knew this was coming. The Nintendo upped prices on the original Switch, Xbox upped prices on all their systems. I love how when a lot of the initial tariff scare was happening, PlayStation did like do a sale on the Pro for like a week. Like they just randomly did a price drop just for a little bit right after, and now it's like, okay, here's that price raise. We knew it was on its way. So it sucks. That's just the only way to put it. Like, It's very annoying that after years of being used to systems getting cheaper as time went by. We're now in a time where an 8-year-old console like the Switch can be more expensive now than it was in 2017.
Yeah,
And in the case of PlayStation, like, this going up in price again in some cases. Like the digital was originally 400, it turned into 450 when the Slim happened, and now it's 500. Like, it sucks.
Yeah, I, that was again the big reason why I bought the Switch 2 at launch was like I just want to. I mean, obviously I want it. I want to get a launch, but like it was also just like, hey, when is it? When are the prices going to go up? Because it
Yeah.
could go up literally at any time. And when I saw the price increase announcement, for a millisecond while I was still reading, I was just like, okay, I have a window. And then I see it's August 21st. I'm like, I have no window. It's just happening right now. And there's nothing I do not have the time or the money
Yeah.
to
Impulse buy it in this moment.
to impulse buy it and flip it. And like, I just don't. So I'm just SOL. And again, I just don't think that there's, because again, I like having the top of the line stuff. Like I want a PS5 Pro, but there's not enough to justify me getting it.
Yeah.
Because I think, and that's like one of the things about being primarily a JRPG player is that like JRPGs outside of like Final Fantasy aren't gonna get like a PS5 Pro patch. Like they're just not.
Rebirth is like the one.
Yeah, and like you can talk about Monster Hunter as well, but like still it's okay, sure. And yes, I do play most PS5 first party titles, but still like, so you want me to fork over probably what, around $450 after trading in my PS5 to get the PS5 Pro on top of buying the disc drive attachment? No. Like,
Yep.
I don't want to do that. Like, maybe down the line, maybe when I'm in a better place financially, but because again, like I do think at the end of the day, eventually I will have a PS5 Pro, but just right now, I just can't justify the purchase of it. Like if during like the holiday season, it goes down like $50 to $100, maybe, maybe I'll just be like, okay, this is probably the lowest it's ever gonna be. Might as well just try and knock it out now. But yeah, outside of that, I don't really see it. But I'm happy for you and your fancy 25th, or was it 25th, right? 30th anniversary?
30th anniversary, yeah. It is currently eclipsed in the background by a stack of PS5 games because I was doing stuff on there. But yep,
Yeah.
I have my Pro that works. So
Yeah, you have the one that people were like up way too early for, and no, hardly anyone got. At least yours isn't numbered though, which is honestly probably rarer.
I mean, it depends on how you view serialized, right? Because technically, there's only one PS5 Pro that says it's number blank out of, I don't remember what the full run was.
I think it was 2,500.
Yeah, so like technically each numbered one is unique, right? Because
Or
you have
3,000.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But anyways, like technically each numbered one is unique, right? Because it is that specific numbered
Sure.
one of a run versus, I don't know how many different promo ones don't have the marking like mine, but there are multiples of those out there. So
Sure,
I think from a
that's fair.
collector standpoint, the serialized aspect has a bit more weight to it. But still, like, yeah, there's not a ton of these.
Yeah, and one of the things that also sucks is that like my OG white controller, I don't think works very well now, and so like if I were to trade in my PS5, I would need to buy a new controller to trade in with it. Yeah. Anyway, I would probably just try and sell it to a friend that needs a PS5 for some reason. Next story. Triangle Strategy is now on Xbox, and it is confirmed to be coming to PS5 at a later date. That's it. Kevin, I know that you're probably the biggest Triangle Strategy fan I know. Like genuinely. We've talked about it before on the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I know. So from those that have played it, that I talk to, like, I know some people like think the game is a little too wordy,
Yeah,
a
that's
little too a little too dialogue heavy.
yeah, that doesn't bother me, but I get it. Like I,
Yeah.
as someone who isn't bothered by it, I can still see it and be like, oh, I understand why this is too much for some folks. Because especially the way it's just paced, it's like, hey, you're doing a battle, and then like, hey, you're gonna do 4 different talk heavy cutscenes back to back to back, and I eat that shit up. And a
Yeah, I
lot of
like
it
that shit
is
too.
a lot of it is optional too, is part of it. So like I think some people feel the impulse of they have to click everything that pops up, but it's like, man, if you just want to get to the fight, watch the main story cutscene and then just go in. Like you don't need to
Sure.
watch all the optional scenes if you're just not about that.
Yeah.
I do
But,
think it'd be
yeah,
handier if
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, you knocked that shit out in a weekend.
pretty
Like,
much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You crushed that.
admittedly, I was able to speed through it a bit more because I did like alternate between normal and easy. Like I was not trying to just do this on the challenge right away. I was like, you know what, this one stage is bothering me right now. I'm just gonna get through it on easy because I wanted to like finish it that weekend. Which I don't think it would have taken me like much longer to do it on normal the whole way through. But yeah, it's a great game. I'm excited that I'm a little surprised it's not just like a simultaneous drop on PlayStation and Xbox at the same time. It's kind of funny that they're staggering it that way. I do love how this game came to Oculus headsets before it came to other consoles. Because for the longest time, it has been just Switch and PC, and that was it. But yeah, it's a great game. I hope someday we get a sequel. Supposedly there was a 2 that was in development and they got canceled, which I hope is not the case, but so it has been reported. It maybe if it sells well enough on these new platforms, Square Enix gives it another look. I mean, I kind of get it right now with the current lineup of how many different titles are doing the HD 2D look, and it's like, oh, that team is busy right now. Like there are already all these different titles being worked on, so we'll see.
Yeah. I'm curious as to what their next like what Team Asano's working on next when it comes to like remaster slash remake, because that seems to be like a trend, right? Where like I think like Dragon Quest is kind of its own area personally. Like I don't really see it like in the cycle of like, oh, Octopath 1 and then Live Live, right?
Live Alive was also a remake.
Live Live, Octopath 2, or sorry, Triangle Strategy, and then there was wasn't there something else in between that and Octopath Traveler?
Uh, it was Octopath Traveler, then it was Triangle Strategy, then it was Live Alive, then it was 2, then most recently Dragon Quest 3.
Okay, so maybe it is a part of that cycle then. Maybe
Yeah,
it is.
well, and that's all. Those also aren't all the same dev. Like there are, I think, people from the team involved in that.
Yes, yes.
But there are a lot of the remakes are handled actually by different people than the people that are working on like Triangle Strategy and Octopath and Elliot, which is one of the next big ones coming up. There are different teams because I forget who I saw talking about this, but one of the main hallmarks you can really tell is like, all of these HD 2D games are involving like pixel sprite characters, but then some of them have very pixelated backgrounds, and then some of them are like, yeah, this is just a 3D background. Like it doesn't really fully match the same aesthetic you're getting out of like Octopath Traveler. And that's more heavy in the remakes like Dragon Quest.
Okay.
You might be thinking of
ahead.
Star Ocean 2. Because Star Ocean
No.
2 gets a little bit of like some people think it's like an HD 2D thing, and it's kind of not really, but like I see how that correlation happened.
Yeah, no, but I do really want to play that game. Like that is near the top of my JRPG backlog.
It's a good one.
But,
We should probably just put
yeah.
that on one of the votes for
Well, the thing is,
catalog.
that is like for Campfire Catalog, I try not to do like these major series entries because I know that I'm currently going through these like certain series bit by bit.
Sure.
The only instance that I would potentially like be down to do that is if we did Final Fantasy VIII and Ben Starr agreed to be on the pod. which to be clear, when we go to PAX, I am going to ask him. I'm going to be like, yo, Ben, like if we do this, do you want to come on and talk about it? Because like I feel like he's talked like in general, just like base level about his love for Final Fantasy VIII, but I haven't heard him talk in depth about
Like a
it.
deep
And
dive,
that's what
yeah.
and that's what I like. It would be really cool if we were just like, hey, we did this. you know? Even if it's not Campfire Catalog, even if it's just like
A special episode, yeah.
a special episode, yeah, 100%. But the thing is that I got to get to Final Fantasy VIII, and currently I'm on 3, so we still got some time there. But anyway, there was something else I wanted to say about with Dragon Quest. I have it on solid authority that we're going to get 4 through 6. So
I've heard that before as well, yeah.
but I'm also curious as to like how long that's going to take.
Sure.
Like, are they already working on it? Are they going to be working on some other projects first? Like, but knowing that, like, hey, seems to already be in the works. Like, at least from a proposal approval like standpoint, it probably is. It probably is just gonna keep going. But I do want to know, like, what is the next like Live Alive-esque remaster that they're going to make, right? Like, what, again, we talked about it before, like Bahamut Lagoon, like, would be really cool, or like another notable Square RPG that has never been officially localized in the West.
Yeah, that or like, because I think they hold the IPs for these now. All the Quartet RPGs, right? Terra Enigma and that kind of deal. Like,
oh yeah, okay, that'd be cool. That'd be very cool. I did not expect us to go that long on Triangle Strategy. Our last story, Starbites, is officially coming to the West, and it's being published by NIS America. This is a turn-based sci-fi RPG that was developed by Korean studio Ikina Games. They don't have super notable past credits, but they did help with the development of Little Town Hero, which was Game Freak's RPG that released a few years ago. I'm just going to read the description from the press release I got, and there is a trailer out now if you want to check it out. It looks cool. I definitely want to check it out. Join Lukita and her allies as they uncover the truth beneath the sands of Bitter. Hop on your motorbot and ride towards freedom in the brand new RPG Starbites. On Bitter, a desert planet ravaged by the aftermath of an interstellar war, a young salvager named Lukita seeks to escape to the stars. But a sudden attack by a giant robot sets events into motion that will change her life and the fate of Bitter forever. Explore the expansive landscape of Bitter atop your motorbot and fight your way to victory in a turn-based battle system that's easy to learn and satisfying to master. Build up your party, kit out your motorbots with powerful equipment, and head out into the deserts of Bitter. Somewhere beneath the dunes, the truth of what happened 45 years ago awaits. And this is coming out early 2026 for everything but Xbox, as NIS does.
So it goes.
Yep. Any thoughts on that, Kev?
I mean, I like big robots, so I want to look at this. I haven't seen this trailer yet. You told me about this like right before we hopped on recording.
That's true.
Because you were just.
I didn't know if you did it in the back end. You were just like kind of checking it out. So
I haven't checked it out yet. So I'm a little curious. You know, I don't know a ton of this dev's history really, and so there's a bit of a wild card element there. But I like the general concept you have read to me. I like turn-based RPGs. I like robots. There's stuff going on here that makes my brain happy. So. Yeah, I'll give this one a look for sure.
Cool. Breaking news, as we before, from when we started this podcast. Apologies to you, Kevin. The Analog 3D has been delayed yet again. It is.
I mean,
now,
that was yeah.
It is now coming out sometime in Q4.
Damn. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I mean, they said it was finally going to happen in August, and we are 10 days left in the month with no shipping notifications or updates. So, like, look, man, I understand people's frustration and, like, anger with analog. I also like analog products, and I think one of the things they've done that absolutely shoots themselves in the foot is I think analog loves to put on this face, like, they're a big, like, cool company, and they love doing, like, Apple aesthetic stuff. And it's not really that huge of a company. Like, their distribution has never been that strong. I think their manufacturing is slower than a lot of people believe. Like, a lot of times people be like, oh man, they're doing all these like small runs in order to give FOMO and make people buy it. It's like, I think a lot of this is honestly they just don't have the supply chain to like churn these out as much as they could really profit from. And we're definitely seeing that with this 3D, right? Where it's just they announced it way back. We did pre-orders quite a while ago now, and it just keeps being pushed back and keeps having problems. And I hope it's good, because paying for a thing in advance that doesn't actually fully exist yet, and it's not in like a crowdfund kind of way, is always a weird feeling.
Yeah, I don't want to go too deep on this just because, like, so, hey, this has been delayed. But
Yeah.
when it comes to the analog stuff and like the manufacturing and the kind of availability of things, I can see both sides of things because I bought my Super NT back during COVID time, and the only reason I bought it at the time was because they said this is the last run we're doing.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the last run that they did.
Yep.
And so it's just like, okay, so is it a distribution thing or a manufacturing thing where they just like can't make that much, or they're just deciding not to anymore?
I'm sure it is a mixture. Absolutely.
Because I think that I personally, knowing how this, like the specifics of what they make, I don't see why they would ever decide to stop making one of their products, because there's not a lot of what they really make. Like, there's not like a lot of products overall, and that's like how you do. That's how you keep your business up, right? Like, and so I'm curious as to and these things on the aftermarket are so expensive.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
like.
Absolutely.
I remember going into my my local game shop, and someone, like, they had one of these in like the fancy cabinet, and it was like $700-800. And I'm like, absolutely not, dog. Like, I'm really glad that I got this when I did, because there's still like enough in the SNES like library that hasn't been ported or whatever that or I want to like experience on original hardware, that I was, I wanted to buy it. But if I didn't have this and I saw that for 800, you're out of your goddamn mind. You're out of your goddamn mind.
And the thing is, that's for, the Super NT is relatively one of the more affordable products they've made. Because it was after they decided to stop trying to like go over the top and be like, oh, this is like, professionally done folded aluminum that's expensive premium materials and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, all right, we made a plastic one. Like, it's still expensive because of other stuff going on and like the chipset, but like we're not making every aspect expensive. You mentioning that resale had me curious, and so I'm looking it up. So the Analog Pocket, that was a little bit more because it also had like the built-in screen, so there's all that tech going on with it. But they did a limited run at one point that was they brought back doing like an aluminum body, and I think list for that was like 400, maybe 450. It is currently listed on resale sites for like $2,000.
Yeah, no, because it was one of those things where I was. Because I pre-ordered it straight away. I got a white one. I bought the dock as well because there's definitely some games that I have on Game Boy like Advance or Game Boy Color that I would love to stream. And then they announced the colored versions of them all, and the way I wanted to crash out, because I was just like, fuck, because I wanted the purple one. I wanted the purple one.
And they did that like 3 times in a row. Like different color waves and different.
So they did like the matte color, and then they did like the translucent, and then they might have done one other. But like, I wanted the matte one. I was like, that is something where like, if I have fuck you money down the line and I see the purple one, I might have to do it, dog. As someone who grew up with the Game Boy Color, I might have to do it. The nostalgia, like just the nostalgia of it all, and like again, only if I have fuck you money, only if I have like this is not gonna affect me whatsoever type shit. I don't even know like what those are selling like. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, Kevin, what have you been playing?
So this past week, I've been putting a ton of time into Lunar Remastered Collection because that is on our to-do list for Campfire Catalog. I'm gonna get to Legend Dragoon, even though that was the earlier one we were supposed to do first. I just like Lunar is a lot easier, I think, to digest, so I just wanted to like burn through it. I have a little bit more to do in two, but I finished one, and I'm not going to go too in depth on it because obviously we're doing it for Campfire Catalog. There's a lot of stuff I want to share there. What I do want to bring up is how while I was getting through one, especially after like already hearing your praise about it, like as you were getting through it and what you've been saying in the Discord and such, I was just like, "Yep, this makes a lot of sense. Why this is just a very cam coded game. Like I already kind of knew that in advance. Like I from what I remembered of it, I was like, oh yeah, like I feel like Cam would like this game. And as I'm actively playing it, I'm like, oh, this is all bait for the kind of stuff Cam likes. Like,
Hell yeah, brother! Hell yeah, brother! No, that's the thing that's been really nice about playing or just doing this pod with you, and it's just being more acquainted with each other's tastes, both in and outside of JRPGs. And this was definitely like a playing through that game, especially that first one.
yeah,
It's one of those rare games where I feel offended that no one told me to play this game sooner. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
y'all, this was a me ass game, like Cameron trademark.
very. Like especially the first one, like the second one too. But I think the second one it refines a lot of things mechanically in a good way, and I think it gets a little more deep in some aspects. But I also think it becomes a slightly more like traditional JRPG, or there's like certain aspects of it that I feel are a bit more stock to the genre. Whereas one is very more front loaded with certain subjects that I think are just like entirely your brain.
Yeah, and short update from last week. I did beat the final boss, or like, and for those that don't know, there is an epilogue. So once you beat the game, there's an epilogue. So I haven't done the epilogue yet. That being said, like, I think I can confidently say that I like Lunar 1 more than I like Lunar 2. I still think they're both great games. Um, I just think the first one is more focused. It understands a lot more what it wants to do, and it's one of those rare cases, not rare cases, but like one of those cases where the simplicity of it is one of its strengths. And I think that there are some things to really like applaud the second game, but then there's things that like compared to the first game that's just like, why did you do this, why did you
Sure.
do this, why did you do
Yeah,
this?
no, I think it's like there's a lot of specific things that got updated, and it what's hard to track too is like what happened in which game at what point, because both of them have been ported and remade so many times now. Like not just
Mhm.
this remaster, but like originally they were Saturn releases, then they got updated versions that came out on PS1. I think there was a CD version for some of them too. It's just like they have been reworked on so many times. It's a little hard to break down like where certain updates or changes got implemented with each game. But at least looking back at the versions in the remaster collection, like I think there's a lot of specific things worth praising into that are like technical updates and are like certain choices. But there is, I think, a stronger core identity to one. Um, like I think it was a bit more about what it's about. Whereas two, I think, was trying to like up the scope a little bit and fall a little more in line with I think some of the genre trends were for JRPGs.
Yeah, like without getting into spoilers, I think the first game is very much about like building up that world and using a the kind of the history of a deity to as like the kind of weight that's being carried throughout that story, while two is like, hey, you already know what this world is, we're not really going to like dig remotely as deep into the world building aspects, and this is more of a like, hey, this character is the core of the entire story, and really like when she does things, that's when the story progresses. Like, and it's struck, so the way that the narrative flows is a lot different, and the things that like I really liked about the first game isn't as present as much. There are certain things with the characters that like I thought like, oh, they have so much opportunity to do more than what they did in the first game, and then the way that they decide to execute those things from the narrative, it's just like, oh, okay, so these things are like going to be really short lived. There's really no real build up to these side story, like, these the background stories of these side characters, and that was a little disappointing.
Yep.
But overall, still very much like the game. I'm excited to finish the epilogue. Probably sometime today or tomorrow.
Yeah, and then you never like this is your first like game arts thing in general, right? Like you haven't played any
No.
Grandia games or okay, so
Nope.
yeah, I'd be curious to see about like in the future, kind of journeying more into their catalog moving ahead because I have played some of the other ones, although not to completion.
Yeah, I think Grandia 2 is the one that people really love, right?
Grandia 2, like I think 2 is the one that usually gets the most love out of the Grandia franchise. 1 as well, for a bit different reasons, and then it falls off a little bit once you get to like Extreme and 3. But the first 2 are definitely, I think, the stronger ones for a lot of people.
Okay, yeah, I have the collection. I just haven't played them yet. But knowing that it's like the same studio makes me want to play those games quicker.
Yeah, and I don't know the credits off the top of my head. I don't know if like lead talent is the same or not, but they are all game arts. So
yeah, that definitely makes me want to play those games more. On top of just their notoriety, and also just they're 2 games, right? Like once they're done, like I've done them, and I definitely want to. Again, I already want to get a lunar tattoo. And right now I'm very much like thinking of getting the Dragon Master helmet. I just think that Dragon Master helmet is equally cool as it is goofy. Like, it's so cool, but it also looks fucking ridiculous, and I love it. So, and I think that's like what, yeah, I think that's why I love it, because it's such like a, you can't. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like it.
Oh,
you know
I mean,
what
the tone of that game is so wacky because it's already like by intent lightly tongue in cheek and silly. Like the game just has that at its core. But then this is gonna like there's a lot to break into about this that we'll do more in the catalog.
Yeah.
But Lunar is also one of those weird situations where like the English script does depart fairly heavily in some sections, not like altering plot. But inserting tons of like very Western specific jokes, like lots of pop culture references, lots of quick one-liners that are alluding to certain things, double entendres everywhere. Some of this existed in the original script, but a lot more got added. So it's like they saw the game was kind of meant to be a little silly and heartfelt, and they were like, okay, what if we like hard lean into that for the localization? And because I know that was one thing some people were hoping for would be to like have a reversion on that and get like a true translation of the script, and that is not what happened with remasters. We got all those jokes still.
So it's interesting because I was looking at I listened to part of Lunar 2 and like the voice acting. First off, voice acting very 90s coded. Like holy crap.
Yeah, because so they redid the voiceovers for the remaster, but I swear they were like, hey, but you got to make the sound like just like we need to do this in like the direction was do this like we're in a recording booth in 1992. Like
yeah, no, it was just it's very there's certain parts of it that felt very like, I don't want to say Shakespearean, but like very like over dramatic.
Yes.
Like
no, lots of over dramatic, lots of like exposition that wouldn't even make sense to actually say. Like you don't need to recap to everyone in this moment. Like I think I can finally get over my dark path or like stuff like that, where it's just like
yeah. And then there was just like some like just general dialogue where I was just like, oh, this seems a lot more exaggerated, campy type dialogue versus what I experienced in the remaster, if that makes sense. Like I think that the remaster was able to dial that down a little bit.
Yes.
But I also don't know if I hate that because like I didn't get to experience the whole game in that
Sure.
experience. Like if I do a replay, I'm 100% playing the original, and I want to know, like, I want to feel all those differences. But cool. Yeah. I'm excited to get to that campfire catalog, and we got to get to Legend of Dragoon as well.
That's my goal.
Um,
I'm gonna tackle Trails the rest of this month. I want to try and finish that before like by the end of the first week of September, and then after that, it's just Dragoon all September. Like I gotta. There's a lot of games coming out I want to play, but I gotta set them aside for now as I bulldoze my way through that.
no, yeah, I'm in a similar boat.
Especially before October. October's so scary. That October release window is so absolutely stacked this year.
Yeah, it's I don't know a lot of it on top of my head, but we got to get to the topic of the show for
Yes.
this week. Kevin, you kind of proposed this topic of the show, and I'm just gonna like let you take the reins, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, this is the topic of the show that I very, very specifically broke down and have a full list for that I'm partially making up off the top of my head. No, look, over the course of playing Lunar, as well as like some of the other games we've been playing, like Legend of Dragoon, I've been thinking a lot about how certain mechanics have aged over time, and there's some stuff that I think people view as being like relics of older games that I think actually still work and like serve a purpose, and like there's a reason to do that. And there's some that I think it's more clear cut than others. Like for instance, I don't want to go too in depth in this one just yet, but like random battles versus running into enemies in the field. Like not a lot of people are going to argue in favor of pure random battles. I think there's benefits to that, but like that's one that I think most people tend to be like, nah, man, I'm glad I don't need random screen shakes every 7 steps I take. But then there's others where I think there's a much more interesting argument for how the design impacts like your gameplay experience. Like I think the first one that actually usually comes up when I talk to people is save points. The idea of like, hey, like, does it make sense to have actual hard save points that act as like that's where you save and that's it, versus well, I mean, we live in modern times now. A game should be auto-saving every room I enter, and I should always be able to just immediately revert back to that most recent moment so I have as little lost progress as possible. And I don't know if I agree with that. Like, I get it, and I understand how that's like a bit of a friction removal. But I also think when you're thinking with save points in mind, and part of this is like an expectation of what you're used to thing, right? Like, I think if you've never played a game with save points and you're just used to autosave being everything you play, that is going to be an adjustment. But like, I look at how stuff with like Lunar works, right? And that is a old school traditional save point type thing, and the remaster does not add any autosave. Like you're not getting any kind of additional quality of life there. And even though I've had like one or two specific situations where it's annoying, I oftentimes trace that back to either my own folly of like I should have just used that save point. Why didn't I? Or like I just kind of dig it more. I think there's such a thing as like poor implementation of save points, but I also think save points into themselves like absolutely are a thing that work in current games as much as they did in the older ones. I don't think it's just like an outdated old thing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. I think that if you look at Souls likes, right? Campfires are save points.
Oh yeah.
That's what they are. And so like I think that when I think of save points and how I think save points are a design decision where like you have to overcome a certain level of challenges to get to that next save point.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you got to start again. Like it's just it is literally like a design choice to make challenges for your character similar to campfires, where you go campfire to campfire and you're just like, oh, finally a new bond. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a sanctuary, and like those are implemented in different ways. Sometimes it's just like it's a location, right? Like in Dragon Quest, it's the churches. At least for most of the series, 11 they kind of changed that, which I would like them to actually revert back to moving forward, because it is like one, I love it that it's a church because it's literally a sanctuary.
Right.
Like and it's just like, oh, where I can save and I can record my journey. Um, and but then there are other instances where and I think that with save points, I love them so much. There are games that I knock them down for like not having save points.
Right.
Like I think one example of that recently is Expedition 33. Not trying to continue the Expedition 33 train, but that game is all autosave.
Yeah.
And I hate that. Like I think that even if you don't want to do save points, if you're doing autosave, I feel it like it is a requirement to me
Yeah.
that you have manual saves as well.
Yeah. Well,
Like I don't care if you
it's weird
I
in
don't
that
care if
one.
you have, go ahead.
It's weird in that one because it's kind of a fusion of both. Because like the game doesn't autosave like every time you enter a new area or like progression. It does do it specifically at checkpoints, but
Yes.
there's no like manual control of your files and specific ones.
Yes.
Something I think a lot of people miss with that game is it does actually rotate a lot of save files, so you are able to like manually reload however many saves back. But it's not at all like a intentional experience on your part where you're like, oh, I have my main save file, and maybe this time because of where I am at, I'm going to put this in save slot 2 right now in case, you know.
Yeah, and I mean there's other just general reasons that why manual saves matter if you're not going to do save points.
Sure.
But like for me, if I know that I'm about to if I'm about to when it comes to resource management, or if it's like a boss I know that's going, or an enemy that I know is going to be challenging, that I might die and I don't want to lose a lot of progress, like I want to save beforehand, or it's like, oh, I learned that lesson. Now when I do it again, I want to save here so that I don't have to overcome that multiple times. Because like I think that when it comes to a save, when you have these save points, it's in my mind of like, oh, getting to the next save point is like the next challenge I need to overcome.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like, oh, it's all autosave and manual, there's no save points. It's like, okay, you're making me do this over and over again. You are wasting my time.
Yeah.
And that is like the difference, because from a design standpoint, you're not trying to make me the challenge is this enemy, not particularly like getting from point A to point B.
Right.
I don't know. Do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, because I think, and this is something where I think people come from. It comes down a little bit to like why you play a game or why you enjoy it. I like resource management from like a dungeon delving standpoint. Like I love the idea of like,
oh, yeah,
I need to have so many items stocked and like have things ready to go. And like, that's really what MP traditionally is, right? MP is a limit on how long you can be away from like an inn to sleep at. And that affects how long you can stay adventuring. That's why in some games, MP recovery is like a super hard to come by thing. I love that stuff. Some people hate it. And so I like that aspect a lot, where I agree with you. Like, I think the main thing it plays a role in is adding that sense of challenge to like getting from point A to point B, and doesn't necessarily apply as often to like bosses specifically, unless the challenge is like getting through something to then still be in good enough shape to tackle the boss. Because while I do like having save points, I will say it is nice when I also have like an instant retry for bosses. I don't necessarily want it to be like instant retry, also give me full health and MP. But like, if it's just like, look, I don't want to walk up to the boss area. I don't want to have to skip cutscenes, because that was the thing with Expedition 33, right? Where I didn't mind like retackling bosses over and over again and doing it from the checkpoint. I just minded like having to do the cutscene again. And like, it's cool, I'll fight all the forms again, I don't care, but don't make me sit through all this buildup each time in order to like just get back to that point and do it again. Like, let me just immediately retry with the resources I have, and then if I do want to like change my circumstances of getting in the boss fight, then I'll reload.
Yeah, that's I think that's totally fair, and I would just in general probably agree with that. And I think that because you were talking about because I think it's relevant to the conversation, at least for me, like talking about like, oh, scripted combat, where or like you see the enemies, that type of combat versus random encounters.
Sure.
And I know that random encounters are like just really at this point really disliked.
Yeah.
Like I think that even in the JRPG space, like a lot of people just aren't really fans of that anymore. And I can understand why to a certain extent, because that is like the biggest thing that has turned me away from Octopath Traveler 2.
Mm.
But it's not that it's like random encounters, it's that they happen, in my opinion, too frequently, and then the fights go on for too long.
Yeah.
And so that is a faceted issue.
For sure. Well, and like,
But like, go ahead.
just another example that I think, and this is one where people really hate it, but honestly, I kind of miss it. I always enjoyed how Pokemon handled it, where
Me too.
there are specific things that cause encounters, right? Like there's an idea of like, oh, if I stay out of the tall grass, I'm safe. And if I minimize my time walking through tall grass, everyone's damaged. I need to get back to a Pokemon Center or something. Like, I need to be careful about where I choose to walk. And then it also ups the danger of areas where random encounters are just a constant, like being inside of a cave. I really dig that, actually. And I understand why for Pokemon in particular, there is a nice shift of being able to see the enemy, because a large aspect of that game is trying to hunt down specific ones. And so especially if you're like shiny hunting or trying to find an enemy that has like a 1% encounter rate, that sucks. And that's where random encounters get to be a pain. But in terms of how it shapes like the exploration aspect and just the regular gameplay and not the monster catching, absolutely love that approach, actually. And it's something that I wish more random encounter games would do. Like, don't just give me them everywhere. Like, give me a way to interact with the environment where I'm now choosing like to be riskier or not.
I completely agree with you on that, and I was going to eventually get to Pokemon, so I'm glad that you got there. I need to double back a little bit to what I was saying, because I think that there are instances of random encounters that outside of Pokemon, like I just think it's interesting because random encounters, like Legend of Dragoon has random encounters, right? And I think that I don't mind that because they have the save points. Like, I think that with the random encounter being in, like, and the save point mechanic both being into play, it is this idea of like this kind of, not like anxiety, but this feeling of like, oh man, when am I going to see that save point, because I don't know when I'm going to get into a next fight, and like, I need to get there. That, like, I like that feeling. I don't want it to, like, for me it's more so like the random encounter doesn't bother me. It's more so like, okay, where is this save point? Because if it gets too long, they're just like, okay, where's the save point?
Yeah.
Not like that the random encounter is the issue. And so I like that. I think that those two mechanics do work well together. But then when you have something that's more like auto save or manual save, where you do see the enemies, I do think that complements that better as well. Yeah. And I mean, like, it doesn't always work like that, because Pokemon, you have manual save, like, and you don't have like save points, and you have random encounters. But I also think because of, again, the nuance of everything is just like, your goal is to catch monsters, and there's a wide pool of monsters, different ones in different areas. And for me, I thought the magic of Pokemon were the random encounters and being like, what new Pokemon's going to show up? What new
Sure.
this? Like, is it going to be a Pokemon I like? Because like those are the things that for me as a kid that made Pokemon magical.
Yeah.
And so I think that the idea of, like, I don't absolutely hate that they shift away from that, because I think that they're also, I think presentation is another factor that goes into that.
Absolutely.
And when you're trying to create this big open world that isn't, the same as going from the original like Gen 1, Gen 2 specifically more so, but like definitely up to what Gen 7, like it's it makes sense to be like, okay, yeah, we see the Pokemon now.
Yeah.
We see the Pokemon now, and this is offering something different that I get. I understand why they do it. And again, I'm having a great time with it. But I also feel like I'm at a different, I'm a 31-year-old man and I have a different expectation for Pokemon nowadays and
Sure.
and
Well,
and things like that.
yeah, and Pokemon's weird too because it is like walking a balance between a few different things. Because I really think where the random encounters for me at least got annoying in that game is when you did have some of those slightly too uneven encounter rates for certain things. Like shinies are shinies, they're always going to be annoying. But when you have certain Pokemon where it's like, oh, like Pikachu in Viridian Forest, super tiny chance of maybe running into one of those, and otherwise it's going to be 27 Metapods, and like
Yep.
that gets tiring when you're like, okay, I know Pikachu's here, I want to get a Pikachu. Damn it, it's another Caterpie. Like again and again and again. And I think it was more stressful or annoying in the older ones where like a zone would literally be 3 different Pokemon, right? It's like, hey, enjoy running into 37 Zubats and maybe 1 Onyx.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
like, I think as much as there's a lot of things I don't like about X and Y, but one of the things I do appreciate about it was the first Pokemon game where it really felt like it gave you diverse Pokemon lineups in every area you entered. It was like, oh, there's like, 8, 9, 10 different Pokemon in this zone. And so you're getting really nice variety consistently. You're not getting that overwhelming feeling of like, it's Zubat, yay.
Yes, and I think part of it is, and that goes into like just the introduction of the internet, in my opinion, where like when you were a kid and you were like everyone was playing Pokemon, that was the social game. That was the social game, the video game, where you would be like, oh, what team do you have? And it's like, oh, I got this Pokemon, this Pokemon, this Pokemon. And you'd either be like, you're stupid because that Pokemon sucks. Or you'd be like, where did you get that Pokemon? And then they would tell you like, oh, I got it at this location. I'm like, what do you mean? I've never gone there. And then you learn that like, oh, certain Pokemon have a lesser chance of showing up than others. And then it's just like the way that you learn more about the game through social interaction,
Yeah.
which nowadays is just not really a thing anymore.
Sure.
And that's another part of the Pokemon is just not what it used to be.
Yeah.
And,
well, and that's actually a whole other interesting topic too, of like
Yes.
how many games, because like there are so many design choices in a lot of older games, like up through like the PS1 era, even PS2, where there's stuff that's really weird and esoteric, and nowadays a lot of people would probably just call bad design. But part of the intent was like, you're not getting a new game every 2 weeks. You're really putting time into this game and you're learning things, you're discovering things, and secrets are secrets. Like there are interesting
Yes.
things to find out that you'll only learn from like word of mouth of someone else or by really experimenting with the game yourself. And nowadays, when you encounter that kind of stuff, it's like, oh, you can just look it up, you can find it out. There's easy, like the access of information is so simple, and so much of the stuff is just out there. Where a lot of people, I think, default to not having that kind of naturalistic approach to experiencing a game for the first time. And when they find out things like, oh, you can get a Pikachu in Viridian Forest, that now, instead of it being a fun surprise that you happen to run into one, it's turned into, I am walking around here for the next 35 minutes until I find one.
yes, exactly. And granted, like that didn't change. That changed like pretty quickly, I would say, for me, because like I could not explain to you the childlike wonder the first time in Gen 2 where one of the legendary beasts showed up in a random encounter, and I was just like,
Yo,
what is this? What, you know what I mean? Like you were just like you were literally confused by it. And then and then it runs away and you're like, what just happened? Like, I don't know what just happened. And then, because again, like I'm like 8, 9 years old, 10 years old playing this. I'm like, I was just, just the absolute dumbfoundedness of what you just experienced. And then and then you get to like 3rd gen and then you understand how that works, right? And then I find Latios in Pokemon Ruby, and I'm like, okay, I need to find this. I need to find the section of the game where there's the least grass as possible, so I can trigger Latios showing up as much as possible. Because like, so I could tell you exactly what I did. I would refly to Mauville City every time Latios would run away to see if Latios would show up in that specific area right next to the daycare. I would do because once you like go on the Pokedex, it'll tell you where Latios is in like that general vicinity. And there and I just like over and over again, I would just continuously wait for this thing to show up, Ultra Ball, and just hope that I catch it, because that's one of the rare instances where the HP of the legendaries would stay; they wouldn't reset. So I just throw an Ultra Ball, keep hoping until I finally caught the Latios, and that was like such a unique experience. And I just think that when it comes to random encounters, like I I think that there's definitely a place for them, even outside of the monster catching genre.
Sure.
It's just the way that you implement it and the way that it is executed. And I think that, again, recently, there hasn't been many great examples of random encounters. And I think that's why a lot of people have gotten fatigued by them. But I'm definitely not against them.
Yeah. I think it's one thing where like the suspension of disbelief for like how they work is harder to reconcile in games that are now more like you're in the field really experiencing it. Like playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, having a screen shake and go into a battle feels a lot weirder than it did in like original FF7, where it's the isometric view and everything's polygon blocks, and like, or playing older pixel based games, right? Like I think there was more of a divorce in those older games of like, this is a representation of a place, this is not necessarily how it is like actual piece by piece in reality, or the reality of that world. Whereas games are now getting so much more actually descriptive and really immersing you in the space that doesn't translate as well. And also, yeah, I think a lot of games just don't do it very well. Like even an example, I go back and forth on this one. I don't actually care for one of the things Bravely Default does that some people like is that you can just control the encounter ratio whenever you want. Like you can just like, you're like, hey, I need to set this to like 25. It used to let you go down to 0, and it still does in the remake, but now you have to like unlock that as a feature, I think, further in. But it's a thing where it's like, I understand what that's doing, where it's giving you refined control, like the experience you want. And it's like, look, I'm trying to grind right now. Put this thing to 200. Or like, hey, I'm about to die. I need to get back to town. Don't do this to me. Putting it down to 25. Like, I understand the benefit of that, but I also feel like sometimes those kinds of almost like built-in cheat codes it diminish a little bit of like sometimes, because again, like something that appeals to me is that kind of almost survival resource management aspect. And you lose that when you're able to just freely say, no, I don't have to encounter anyone.
Yeah, I think that I think it is tough because we're in an era now where like, and I'm not saying that it's a bad thing whatsoever.
Sure.
But we're in an era of accessibility,
Yeah.
and we're in an era of where we're trying to make games more inclusive. Uh, and it's hard to implement that in a way where I think that you are giving both audiences what they want. And so in that specific example, I would be like, yeah, like that does suck. Like I don't like I don't like that, but I also think that there's options that exist that you just choose not to use.
Sure.
And like I think that you are able to create your own experience.
Yeah. You choose
with
the
that
buttons
game,
you push.
and if you want to make it so that no, I'm not gonna use this like get out of jail free card, then don't and play that game the way that you want. Because I do think that there is something to be said about like mechanics that cause frustration,
Mhm.
and specifically like the frustration of, I think that we're in a mindset a lot of the time where if something is frustrating me in a game, that means that it's bad. And I don't think that is a valid thing. I don't
I,
know.
I
Not that
definitely,
it's not
yeah,
valid. I just don't agree with that mindset. And so because I think that like some of the most memorable and like also like kind of iconic moments in like JRPGs are like going through Victory Road, which is a super long, like, it's challenging because it's long,
yeah,
right? And you need to get through it to be able to get to the Elite Four. And when you get like when you get frustrated,
yeah,
you're like, so I want this to be over, like because I want to get to the Elite Four, but then you also know that is a challenge. It is like the last big challenge you have to get through, and then normally you fight your rival,
yeah,
and then once you like complete that, you feel accomplished. You're like, I feel fulfilled. I'm glad that I got through this, um, and I just think that we should encourage being challenged more in
yeah.
video games, and I think that there
Friction
is
can be a good thing.
yeah, and there are different ways that that is perceived. That is all subjective. But I like playing games that challenge me. Like those are some of my favorite games, especially in like action games. Like I like getting my ass kicked. And again,
Yeah,
that's not for everybody.
yeah, and
But I
it's
also think
also
that go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, like, I think that also gets into a little bit of a territory of like doing difficulty right, right? Because I think there are situations where a challenge is like it's a challenge, but it's also kind of fair in that like you understand why you lost. Like you see
Yes.
what you need to correct, you see what you need to change. And there's some games that are just difficulty and frustrating in a way where you're like, why?
Yes. No, there are definitely games, and that's when you just got kind of get to the general like mechanics of certain games where it's just like, oh no, this is actually bullshit, and I don't like I genuinely do not like the design of this, or it's like, no, I need to figure things out. I need to master these mechanics. It's not the game, it's me. Because I definitely, I know that like people like to kind of talk down or dismiss the ideas of like it's the game's fault, not mine,
Sure.
because like nah dog, you just suck. It's just like, no, there's some games that just have like bad mechanics, and the bad mechanics making it harder to overcome is not a good challenge. That's not the challenge I'm looking for. I'm looking for cool like tight mechanics and a challenge, a mastery of the systems to overcome it, like Sekiro. Sekiro is a great example of that. And I think that like for some people this year, like Expedition 33 is an example of that. Like, and so that's cool. Like, but again, it's subjective because there's some things mechanically with Expedition 33. I'm like, this ain't great to me.
Yeah.
Um, but ultimately, like everything is subjective. Everything is just kind of based off of the person.
Sure.
I totally see the viewpoints of uh not liking random encounters. I totally understand that. And there might be people that like don't agree with me that like, oh, save points are like with us that like save points are okay.
Yeah.
And like
Preferable
I
even.
actually yeah. So it's just really just kind of what you want your gaming experience to be. Uh and that's perfectly fine. So
Yeah. I had
yeah.
other mechanics worth bringing up, but maybe we save that for a part two because I know you have a hard out today. And I feel like
Yeah,
we got some good. That was actually some solid talk on just those two alone.
yeah, yeah. I think that we can uh, do a part two sometime next week, and when you got more to talk about, because we did, yeah, we got through a lot, I think, in 30 minutes. That actually went deeper than I thought it would go, which makes me happy. So we will definitely get back to that next week and talk some more about some other mechanics that we like or dislike. Kevin, do you have anything for the people before we dip out?
Only that I realize I don't know how I confused myself and when talking about save points earlier. Lunar doesn't have them. They have checkpoints for healing, but you save anywhere. Uh, that's a whole thing. But
I
anyways,
did not realize that you said that because I
yeah,
would
I
have
did.
definitely corrected you.
Yeah, no, I thought about it 5 minutes later. Like, wait, what am I saying? No, that's not how that works in Lunar.
Yeah, but those are also like safe havens, right? Like it's
Yeah,
just like, oh, yes, a statue, thank you.
yeah.
So I totally get it. Okay, everybody, you can follow me on socials at CamFinalMix. You can follow Kevin on socials at Kevin Kenson, and we do have our podcast social channel at Party Chat JRPG Pod. I'm trying to use that more, just to see like how it goes, you know. But I also just feel like a lot of people just already follow us. So it's like, oh, what's another social that you have to, need to follow? But trying to get more on that as well. So thank you everybody for listening, and until next time, we'll catch you later.
Later.